Okay, we're continuing with Holy Grail of Wisdom Quotes by me, P. Rogers, alphabetical order. We're going to do Mike Mentzer first, the bodybuilder, then Michael Merzenich, the great brain researcher on cochlear implants, memory, and learning. Okay, so Mike Mentzer lived from 1951 to 2001, and he's a guy who I admired when I was a young guy. He was an awesome bodybuilder. He was really, I think he was the best. He should have beaten Arnold in the Olympiad. I think he got ripped off, okay? He was magnificent, okay? And he had a real innovative new way of training. Instead of doing high volume training, multiple sets of each thing, he would do one set of reps to failure till he couldn't do anymore and just stop for that given weight. And here's like his quotes on all this. If you can curl 100 pounds for 10 reps and never attempt an 11th, then your body has no reason to enlarge its existing capacity. It is only by attempting to go beyond your existing capacity that inroads are made into your body's reserves. The last rep, you're trying as hard as you can and you barely make it. That's what turns on the growth mechanism in your body. That repetition is very special. It's different. The actual muscle growth then occurs while you're resting between workouts. Yeah, so you have to strain the muscle till it knows that it needs to get stronger to adapt to what you're demanding of it. Then eat the healthy food and get your rest and let the muscle grow. Of course, all those guys were taking some form of anabolic steroids, testosterone, quite often human growth hormone as well. And I saw lots of football players when I was in college that were taking these anabolic steroid hormones. And they would get real big and strong, and then if they didn't get drafted their senior year, they would go off the steroids and they'd lose like 50 or more pounds. Okay, he says, titles are overrated. A PhD means piled high dog shit. Okay. Man's proper stature is achievement, strength, and nobility. Man can and ought to be a hero. Yeah, and he was a heroic guy in his field. He was an awesome bodybuilder, and then he was a great bodybuilder coach. He coached Dorian Yates, who later went on to be a great, super successful bodybuilder. And Dorian Yates says, the single biggest mistake that most beginners make is putting 100% of their effort into positive, concentric part of the repetition when you're coming up with the weight, rather than paying attention to the negative, eccentric part of the repetition. Okay, some people also say doing higher reps, builds glycogen storage in the muscle, which is, 1 gram of glycogen is coupled with about 3 grams of water, so that will also build the size of a muscle. That's why some people say volume can help. Anyways, all right, the next guy we're going to talk about is Michael Merzenich. He was born in 1942, so he's a pretty old guy. And he was one of the big pioneers in the cochlear implants, also did some pioneering work related to neuroplasticity and learning. So here's a valuable quote. This quote I'm about to tell you, this is an AO, academic orgasm. It seems simple, but this is very useful to know. He says, how do you improve a brain? You train it to do that activity. How do you make a brain worse? You add noise. So what that means is whatever you're doing, you want to focus on that. Like when I'm trying to work, read, study, write a book chapter, I'll put these ear protectors on. Because with ear protectors, I don't hear all the distraction. It reduces the noise. You can't turn your ears off. And I can concentrate a lot better. Plus, the family, etc., the girlfriend, they can do whatever they want, and that doesn't bother me. I can just focus on what I'm doing. So that's how you reduce noise. Okay, you don't want to have other windows open. You don't want your email open while you're working because it'll be a distraction. Okay. The human brain is a work in progress. From the day we're born till the day we die, it's always improving or getting worse, depending on how we use it. If the brain is exercised properly, anyone can grow intelligence at any age, and potentially by a lot. The way you get smarter is you just every day challenge your brain. And reading does increase your IQ. If you read all the time, your vocabulary gets better and better. You get more comfortable with words. Verbal IQ, for everybody other than like an electrical engineer or some numbers working engineer, for 99.99% of the population, your verbal IQ is much more important than your numerical IQ. So you want to be articulate. It just enables you to have more fun, to joke around more, to learn more, to have more fun in conversation. Learning a new skill can change hundreds of millions of cortical connections. To learn is to change how you think. We need, above all, to know about changes. No one needs to be reminded 16 hours a day that his shoes are on. Yeah, so that's why our receptors of our body for touch, for pressure, for motion, they're all tuned into is there change in the environment, because that keeps you alive when you're out in the savannah and there's predators around. Those who think science is measurement should search Darwin's works for numbers and equations. Yeah, the hardest thing, that was David Hubel, that quote. The hardest thing in Good science is usually coming up with a working model of what's going on. Like I said, for me to be told by Dr. Sloop, atherosclerosis is a blood clot, that was a profound statement. All of a sudden, whoop, a whole bunch of things became obvious to me, and I looked it up, studied it, and he was right. Rokitansky said the same thing back in around 1860. Once you understand atherosclerosis is a blood clot, then you become very intelligent when you read about it. You can make sense out of almost everything. Versus when you got this vague idea, well, I know it's related to cholesterol, and you can't really make sense out of it. And you see all these people talking nonsense because they don't know what they're talking about. Torsten Wiesel, another neuroscientist, said, intuition is important in science, knowing what kind of question to ask. The other thing is a passion for getting to the core of the problem. Yeah, enthusiasm, so you put in the necessary hours. Roger Sperry, another neuroscientist, he said, modern society discriminates against the right hemisphere. Left brain thinking is primarily verbal. Right brain thinking is primarily nonverbal. It's holistic. Okay, Eric Kandel, he's another neuroscientist, did a lot of work with memory. He says, memory is everything. Without it, we are nothing. The truth can have many dimensions, and the way you arrive at truth in complex situations is through many perspectives. It kind of sounds like Six Blind Men and the Elephant. We cannot point to underlying biological basis of most psychiatric disorders. In fact, we are nowhere near understanding psychiatric disorders as well as we understand disorders of the liver or the heart. Yeah, psychiatry is a mess. It's like the worst field in all of medicine. It's so mixed up. All the psych drugs cause a chemical lobotomy. They're all bad. All right. Well, anyways, that's it for quotes there on Mentzer and Merzenich. Hope you found that helpful.